Have you heard of one Humpty Dumpty? How he fell with a roll and a rumble, and fell off like Lord Oliver Crumple by the butt of the magazine wall.
Welcome to James Joyce's divine and delirious comedy Finnegans Wake. In this episode, number 12, we'll hear Irish-Canadian actor and my good friend and colleague Richard Harte performing pages 53 to 58 from chapter 3 of Joyce's last novel. I'm Adam Seelig, the director of the reading you'll soon hear. As I record this in the last days of 2024, One Little Goat Theatre Company, a registered charity in the United States and Canada, is fundraising so we can keep offering our programming. For over 20 years, we've been producing poetic theatre of the highest caliber, which wouldn't be possible without the generous support of individuals like you. We love producing these recordings and films of Finnegans Wake. At the same time, they require money to produce, so please, if you're financially able, take a moment to donate through our website, onelittlegoat.org, and click on Contact and Donate. All donations will receive an official tax receipt. Many thanks to all of you who have already donated to One Little Goat. We really appreciate your support. Finnegans Wake is a production of One Little Goat Theatre Company. For the next 5 years, One Little Goat will film and record all 17 chapters, roughly 30 hours, of Joyce's Finnegans Wake before live audiences in various locations, screening and releasing them along the way with the aim of completing the entire book in time for its 90th birthday, May the 4th of 2029. One Little Goat Theatre Company is an official charity in Canada and the United States. If you'd like to support our work, please visit us online at www.onelittlegoat.org to make a charitable donation. And if monetary support is not an option, you can still help this podcast by rating and reviewing it and by spreading the word. To get in touch, you'll find our email address on the One Little Goat Theatre Company website, and we'd love to hear from you. This river I step in is not the river I stand in. These words feature prominently across a bridge over Toronto's Don River in a public artwork by sculptor Eldon Garnett. The sculpted sentence, which you can see for yourself online in the opening montage of our Finnegans Wake Chapter 1 film, is a variation on the ancient aphorism of pre-Socratic Greek philosopher Heraclitus. No one ever steps in the same river twice. It's a fitting way to think of the Wake's ever-flowing and sometimes overflowing river run of words, languages, dreams, time, and of course Dublin's River Liffey itself, which, by very definition of a river, always runs. Everything, after all, changes. Or as I often hear said succinctly, change is constant. Or if we jump back once more to Heraclitus for another of his evocative phrases, everything flows. Becoming over being. Heraclitus and Finnegans Wake emphasize the former over the latter, favoring flow and process over fixed product. The very language of the Wake, with its seemingly endless evocations of meaning, and also, let's be honest, confusions and opacities of meaning, enacts this process, this flow, this becoming, this river run on every page. In Music at the Heart of Thinking, Vancouver poet and former Poet Laureate of Canada Fred Waugh writes about the elusiveness of linguistic signification in a way that can help us hear, look at, and ultimately experience the many meanings generated by the Wake. As Waugh describes, meaning is not predictable. Quote, as a sure thing, it eludes us, close quote. It won't, quote, stand still long enough to get caught, close quote. While this describes Waugh's own writing, it could just as easily describe a reader's experience of Finnegans Wake, especially because it anticipates one of the most pervasive questions from new and experienced readers alike, namely, what does this mean? Here, if you will, is Waugh's answer. Quote, to say, I don't understand what this means, is at least to recognize that this means. The problem is that meaning is not a totality of sameness and predictability. Within each word, each sentence, meaning has slipped a little out of sight, and all we have are traces, shadows, still warm ashes. The meaning available from language goes beyond the actual instance of this word, that word. A text is a place where a labyrinth of continually revealing meanings are available, a place that offers more possibility than we can be sure we know, sometimes more than we want to know. It isn't a container, static and apparent. As a sure thing, it eludes us. It arouses us to attempt an understanding, to interpret. No single meaning is the right one because no, quote, right ones stand still long enough to get caught. But because we do not know does not mean we are lost. Something that's strangely familiar, not quite what we expect, but familiar, is present. That quick little gasp in the daydream, a sudden sigh of recognition, a little sock of baby breath. Meaning can only be found hiding between the words and lines in a margin large enough for further thought. Music at the heart of thinking. Go ahead. Close quote. And that's how Fredouard's opening entry to Music at the Heart of Thinking leaves off, open-ended, without a closing period. Just as the river-run language of the wake often eludes us, so too does the character of Earwicker in Chapter 3. Or to put it the other way around, just as Earwicker often eludes us in Chapter 3, so too does the language that follows him, reminding us that form and content in Finnegans Wake are one. As Samuel Beckett insisted, Finnegans Wake, quote, is not about something, it is that something itself. Close quote. So if Earwicker is on the lam in Chapter 3, the language is running away too. To borrow the words of Waugh, the language will not, quote, stand still long enough to get caught, close quote. And perhaps there's no better example of this in today's excerpt than in the Casa Concordia paragraph on page 54, which presents such an extreme and obscene mashup of languages that it's almost guaranteed to throw us off Earwicker's trail. The Casa Concordia paragraph, as I promised at the end of last episode, presents Finnegans Wake at its polyglottal, ludicrous best. Casa Concordia is a Joycean invention in Italian meaning house of peace. Edmund Epstein interprets it as a version of the United Nations, then known as the League of Nations. If so, this paragraph seems designed to take the piss out of the UN, figuratively and literally, as it starts off in a tea room and ends up in the bathroom. The paragraph describes people at, quote, 6s and 70s, close quote, i.e. in disarray, and then invokes the parliaments of Bulgaria, Norway, and Russia, the Sobranj, Storting, and Duma, respectively, forgive my pronunciations, before entering the Casa Concordia/UN. Here's how that setup sounds in Richard's reading.
Any dog's life you list, you may still hear them at it, like 6s and 70s, as ever sure as Halley's Comet. Oh, mom, and Sabra and Jill would starting boys and dimmer girls, as they pass its bleak and bronze portal of your Casa Concordia.
Once we are in the Casa Concordia, we encounter languages that strike me, contrary to the building's harmonious name, as more discordant than concordant, a kind of Tower of Babel that might represent more of a divided than united nations. On the other hand, the people conversing here ultimately end their interactions politely with expressions of thanks, so maybe while the 17 different languages of this linguistic mashup don't always agree with each other, the people expressing them sometimes do. In any event, you have to love Finnegans Wake for substituting and subverting the stately bronze doors that open onto the UN's hallowed assembly hall with a, quote, bleak bronze portal, close quote, that eventually leads us to the toilet. The wake is nothing if not irreverent. Here's Richard reading the opening lines in this Tower of Babel/UN dialogue.
Good morning, many flickens. Poor ladies, hearty that. Lost out and left my lady's cue. Maybe I can't to do is good. To party, kiri, to party. Chakai roti kaima karsa here.
Drawing on Swedish, Danish, English, Old English, Italian, Greek, Pan-Slavonic, and Hindi, the phrases here are the kinds you might find in a guidebook for tourists, such as, how are you? Or a phrase offering simple directions, or one asking about tea and teapots. Going on.
Dispense me usted, signor, on von Fico Tap. Atabrano, Macari, think it now, Gaily. A lake pie fly high, palisi lang.
The first sentence here, which Epstein calls, quote, a romance language puzzle, close quote, mentions suco, or sugar, further suggesting a tea room. This is followed by a question in pseudo-Irish that might translate into, quote, oh, I am sorry, Patrick, do you understand Gaelic? Which is followed by a possible riff on Hawaiian that could translate to, we took a long, long flight to Paris. Saving the best for last, here are the final phrases, taking us from tea room to bathroom.
Et puis alors, que Baptiste, tu vas venir dans l'appétit boing. Es même de Boombrac, amigos de Portugal. Oh? Os pipos míos es demasiado grasso por piccolo pochino. Wifi? Duro. Katsis abad. Mercy and you. Goma tak.
The first sentence here is something like, well then, listen, Baptiste, you're going to go to the toilet. The double O that follows is the symbol for a toilet in parts of Europe, which is then followed by the sentence starting with os pipos míos, for which I'm going to turn to Epstein because he's done an amazing job at decoding it. Here is his interpretation. Quote, a mixture of demotic Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian, combining to make a truly outrageous phrase about fellatio. Quote, my prick is much too big for your little mouth, close quote. Os pipos míos is, quote, my bird, close quote, in some Mediterranean languages. But the identification of the bird with the penis is a feature of Mediterranean culture from ancient times, probably going back at least as far as Aristophanes. Demasiado grueso is much too thick in Spanish. Por o is Portuguese, for the. Piccolo pochino is Italian for literally little pocket, but a similar word, bocchino, also means, besides a cigarette holder, an act of fellatio. Has one of the tourists encountered a willing accomplice in one of the toilets of the League of Nations? Close quote. So although Earwicker may be absent from the Casa Concordia paragraph with its welter of languages briefly shaking us off his trail, salacious acts and the scandalous rumors they can engender are never far away from our protagonist. Before we get to Richard's reading, a quick synopsis of today's excerpt. We begin with a Jehu driver or coach driver, quote, jaunty jogging, close quote, through Dublin's Phoenix Park, passing by Wellington's monument, quote,
the monolith rising stark from the moonlit pine barren,
close quote. The three aggressive cheers that follow, quote, chi cheers, close quote, conjure up the three fusiliers from Earwicker's cad confrontation in Phoenix Park, which provoked the gossip and slander from which Earwicker is trying to escape. And when we hear the soldiers yell something that sounds like up and at him, it's clear that Earwicker should run faster and further. This is followed by the Casa Concordia paragraph, which is then followed by Earwicker offering a stuttering defense of his respectability. Earwicker's fall resulting from his alleged sin in the park then adopts a tragic, epic tone. Quote, the house of Atriox is fallen indeed dust, Iliam Ilium. But as with all falls in Finnegans Wake, quote, deeds bounds going arise again, close quote. Yet another cyclical fall and rise that honors the perpetually falling and rising mythical bird that gives Phoenix Park its name and gives Finnegans Wake its main motion and theme. You'll then hear a sentence both light and profound on life, death, and their cycles, which I'll simply paraphrase as, life is a wake, and let you enjoy Richard's reading of that wonderful passage. A central question returns, who exactly is Earwicker, our elusive protagonist? Quote, who was he to whom? Close quote. It's clear we won't have an answer soon as, quote, the unfacts are too imprecisely few. Close quote. Charles Dodgson, aka Lewis Carroll, whose proclivity for photographing nude children came up in Chapter 2, makes an appearance in an ingenious and appropriately disconcerting passage that suggests Earwicker's, quote, exposure, close quote, the perfect word to couple sin with photography, his, quote, maudlinness, close quote, Dodgson taught at Oxford's Magdalen College, and his fatherly, and by extension incestuous, proximity to the adolescent Alice Little, muse and inspiration for Alice in Wonderland. Quote, the tata of a tiny Victorienne, Alice, pressed by his limper looser, close quote. Today's excerpt closes with two opposing groups, the strongers versus the softies, the former inclined to judge Earwicker harshly based on the scandal that surrounds him, the latter preferring to excuse and condone. We will hear more from these characters in our next episode. Now it's time for Richard's performance of James Joyce's Finnegans Wake, page 53, line 7, to page 58, line 22, for the continuation of chapter 3. The performance was shot and recorded at my home in Toronto on October 2nd, 2023, with a live audience. The film premiered at the Toronto Irish Film Festival, European Union Film Festival, and Bloomsday Film Festival, the James Joyce Centre in Dublin. The brief opening music you'll hear is my own arrangement of The Irish Jaunting Car, a 19th century folk song referenced in the first sentence of today's excerpt, with Brandon Bach on drums and Adam Seelig, yours truly, on piano.
And there after, jaunty jogging, on an Irish vis-a-vis, and steadily with shoulder to shoulder, Jehu will tell to Christian year, saint to sage, the Humphread of that fall, and rise. While Daisy winks at her pinker sister among the tussocks, and the couple between the shafts mocks the couple on the car. And as your hill may look like how on the outer side of his big bell, dry your tears and close your nose, and paradigm may rise in air. Follow we up his whip vindicative, Thurstons. Lo be bold, la arboro, la patruzu, the Augustan, peace be to them oaks. The monolith rising stark from the moonlit pine barren, and all fortitudinous Ajaxius round a noisy tenuosity. The Angelus hours, with ditchers bent upon their far-mused tensiles, the soft belling of the fallow deers, Doremus genuine, advertising their milky approach as midnight was striking the hours, the tardy. And how brightly the great tribune out at the sharkskin smoke wallet. Imitation. From his frock kippers. And by Joshua he tips on a twopence right cheeroot. None of your swellish sword, quite the divorce. Now manfully he says, pluck to pluck and lecking for luckin. It was just pluggy well, suck that brown boy o' my son, and spend a whole half hour in Nevada. Sorer of the creeks men. Not there the old high got sprog. Wherefore he met master, he made to say, he do, sire, best of republicans, at Eagle Hostel on Lorenzo Tooty Street, and how he wished his honour that Bannocks of Gorton Moor, yeah, and Bridehead and Puddyrick, your lordship, and a starch box sitting in the pit of St. Thomas. Strange wish for you, my friend. They would poleaxe your son's grandson utterly. Though your own old sweat and swear flow rule runs heaved at hock many as the times when they were terrified by the hits. Cheers for up King Billy and Crow Crew Cranwell's down a bill. Hop boys and hot him. See, I've been there last week, found we Rembrandtsters, they're ours today, link these ears to hear, but where are those yours of yesterday's? Far since the rich and poor old woman, character cousin is Anne Van Vogt, D-A-A-D. Ned, ended, or sleeping soundlessly. Favour with your tongues, intendite. Any dog's life you list, you may still hear them at it, like 60s and 70s, as ever sure as Halley's Comet. Oh, mom, and Sabra and Jill would starting boys and dimmer girls, as they pass its bleak and bronze portal of your Casa Concordia. For a morning, many Finnegans. Poor ladies, hard to tell. Lost out and left my lady's queue. Me la gente raggiunte due scudi. Te party, kiri, te party. C'hai gai rodi gai ma carsa hi. Dispense me usted, signor, on font go tap. Ata brano, ma Cathy, thinking now gaily. A lake pie fly high pie, palisi lang lang. Epi allo, Batiste, tu vas venir dans l'appétit boing. Es même de Boomba, Camille's de Portocali. Oh? Oh? Os people's meals are demasiado grasso, poro, piccolo pochino. Wifi, duro, caxis abad, mercy and you, goma tak. And God, says he, with mugger's tears, would you care to know the prize of a liard? Magus Nick, your nighty novel. Mast having us at the mic again, and that bag belly as a buck to goat it. Gay chappy fellow, I call on our university witness, as sicker as my liffey eggs is known by our good house halters from your hundreds of mammoth degree, which they commercially are in a high British quarters. Conventional. My guest house and Cohendra credits will immediately stand open, as straight as that neighbouring monument's fabrication before the hygienic guild. This was where the Reverend Sabbath and Bottle-Breaker, with fair bark far stretched, touched upon his tie-coloured boater, which he uplifted by its pickled hoopy. He gave Stetson more than a penny for it. When as all the tenacity of Anstralosus scodulated down the both pendices of his muscle-hito lip-tails, San Capitulo, and more modestuous consider you be like never curled a torn pocket-mouth, cordially inviting the adolescents who he was wising up to do in like manner what all did, so he was able to add lobe before the great schoolmasters. I tell you no story. Smile. The house of Atriox is fallen indeed dust. Iliam ilium. Meroma mono mates. Verging on blight like the Monday banks of Feniana. But deeds bounds gone rise again. Life, he himself said once. His biography, in fact, killed him very soon, if yet not after. Is awake. Live at a cricket. And on the bunk of our breadwinning lies the crops of our seed father. A phrase which the establisher of the world by law might pregnantly write across the chest front of all man or woman born. The scene, refreshed, reroused, is never to be forgotten. The hen and crusader ever intermutual mergent. For later in that century, one of that puny band of fat ferreters, then an ex-civilly, out of the custom huts, retired, hurt, under the 65s Act, in a dressy black modern style, and we wear shiny tam Burlingtons, tam Hond and Dicky, quipricquos and pijag, rehearsed it, pippa-pointing, with a dignified, copied bow to a name cousin of the late Archdeacon F.X. Preserved Coppinger, a hot fellow in his night, may the mother of the guard had mastic on him, in a pull woman of our first Trans-Hibernian, with one still sadder circumstance, which is a Dirk and Dirk heart skewer, ever to bring bouncing blimmers from marbled eyes, cycloptically through the window discs, and with eddying ahs, the round eyes of the rundrisers back to back, book to book around their Irish chanting car, beheld with interesting interestedness the clad pursue the bear the green the floor the clad again, as their convoy wheeled encirclingly abound the gigantic life tree, our fire I'll leave lover lucky blumster bum, phoenix in our woodlessness, hearty, cacuminal, erubescent, repetition, whose roots they be ashes with lustres of pains, whose often as they arch a cadence, pleasing aside his Irish field, craving their auriculars to receptacle particulars before they got the bump at Castlebar, Mat and Fire, spoke of it by request all, hearing in this new reading of the part whereby, because of Deus and his machina, the new Garrix and Grimacil and Grimald is hypostasized by a substantiation the axiomatical rotundity of that once grand old Ellington ball. The copycuss's description of that fellow curators' play upon countenance could simply imagine themselves in their bosoms inmost cars, pro tem locums, time sported a course a yawning abyss, as once they were seasiders, listening to the cockshy shooter's even-song evocation of the doomed but always ventriloquent agitator. No more blanger bound their billows or tune of a holly reef. Silk-watted, the walrus might I add, against the dusk of Scumring. Would that fain be St. Moesan's calling? Holy places! And this fair's brimless his brow, faithful toucher of the ground, wish it were. Blessed be the bones, the gauzy power of his sword, his manslayer's gun leader pretended towards that overgrown lead pencil which was soon, monumentally at least, to rise as Malleave de Condylan to be his mausoleum. Oh, Dan stood tail-stained and made his eyes could show upon, while all over his exculpatory features, as Roland rung, a wee dropping of grief, that the Silenizes juju, a ghost of resignation diffused a spectral peelingness, as a young man's drown over the fate of his waters may gloat, similar in origin and accurate and effective to a beam of sunshine upon a coffin plate. Not otherwise in the days of the beginning would our traveller remote, unfriended, from Van Diemen's land, some lazy scald or mandering pout, lift weary Willie's slow-cut snubsick eyes to the semi-signs of his zodiac, and lengthening, lingering along flask neck, cracked cup, downtrodden brogue, turf sod, wild broom, cabbage blad, stock fish. Longingly learned that there at the Angel were her birds for him, poteen and tea, praties and baccy, wine with woman words warbling, and informally quasi begin to press a smile, to quaze a thin. Nonsense. There was not very much windy news blowing at the given moment through the hat of Mr. Melancholy Slow. But in the pragma, what form or cause made a smile of that, to think? Who is he to whom? Oh, brain's not his name, nor the brown one is made. Whose are the place where's? Kawasti, Kister, Kither, Kit, no budget. Dar the dam of the tumulum, give the gab of the groob, be it cudgel players' country, or fish fellows' town, or leek lickers' lang, pang panungo povent gresky. What regnans raised, the rains have levelled. Now we hear the pointers and can gauge their compass, for the menos yields the mould, and the more the manners blaze him and plans him and plows him and blab, teaching. The forefather funkers for the prize of 2 peaches, with Ming Ching and Johnny on the loy lowly. We'll sit down on the hope of the Gooley Ghost, for the tideman troubleth, but his hand at that high is not here. They answer from the Zorns, hear the 4 of them, hark to roar of them. Aye, says our ma, and a proud ot. Aye, says Clonakilty, God help us. Aye, says Dean's Grange, say nothing. Aye, says Barn, and what about it? Oh. Before he fell the hill, he filled heaven. A stream, a lapping stream, and coil and cool of our curls. We were but termites then, we. Our ant-heap we sensed as a hill of Allen, a barrow full in people, one yawn its fale, and it was a grum along the park troop that wonder struck us as a thunder yonder. Thus the unfacts, did we possess them, are too imprecisely few to warrant our certitude. The evidence givers by Legpole too untrustworthy or reputable, whereas the juggers are seemingly freak threes, but it's due to candy plainly -2s. Nevertheless, Madame's the shaw's waxes largely more lifelike. Entrance 1 kudos, exits free, and our notional gullery is now completely complacent, an exegious monument, early perennius. Oblige with your blackboard. Damps the grace, and there many have paused before that exposure of him by old Tom Quad, a flashback in which he sits sated, gowned about, in clericalese habit, watching Bland's all slide dudsomely into the nethermore. The globule of marliness about the corrugated mildew cheek, and the tata of a tiny Victorian Alice, pressed by his limper looser. Yet certes one is. There the following winter I'd overread the pages of nature's book, until Chair Dorbarata Clea became the bleeding Natasha, the shadow of the huge Outlander. Maledic Mulvul Magnopolis had bucked at the bar of a rota of tribunals, in Manor Hall as in Thieves' Kitchen, mid-pillow talk and chick-house chat. On Marlborough Green as through Molesworth Field, here sentence pro-tried with Jedburgh justice. There acquitted, contesting me with benefit of clergy. His thing mad have undone him. His mad thing has done him, man. His beneficiaries are legion in the party created. They numbered up his years. Great Will Dunlop was a name was on it. They hung away on his boy's ackles. As holiday in his house, or was he priest and king to that? Ulvy came. Envy saw. Ivy conquered. Loo, they have waved his green boughs o'er him as they have torn him limb from limb, for his mortification and expiration and damnation and annihilation, with tries and greed are deep profound, so spears, steady Sullivans, mannikins pause, long tongues breeches falling down, but granny's breeds abroad. Do stay for daily ones and fear the fluker's bars, for the total of your floats is not fit to fat his fetlow. Have a ring and sing wa, chin chin, and of course I'll chimed in with the utmost boviality, swiping rums and bones and sherries and ciders and neggers and citronades too, the strongers. Oh, Mr. Begg, you're about to be bagged in a bog again, bug. But softies, sooth side, for gases. But lo, by the threned gods, human, erring, and condonable. What the statues of our Kuo? Who is the mischief be our Kuang? Sure there. The unforgettable tree shade looms up behind the justly judgments of those, as all should know, more incapturable days.
That was Richard Harte reading pages 53 to 58 of Chapter 3 from Finnegans Wake, recorded live in Toronto on October 2nd, 2023. Join us for episode 13 in a fortnight when Richard continues with the next 5 pages of Chapter 3, including a terrific multi-character reportage-like section in search of our protagonist, Earwicker. To be sure you don't miss the episode, why not follow or subscribe to this podcast? For more on One Little Goat's Finnegans Wake project, including transcripts of this podcast, the complete film of Chapter 1, visit our website at onelittlegoat.org. And to hear about upcoming performances and screenings, join our mailing list also on our website. One Little Goat Theatre Company is a non-profit, artist-driven, registered charity in the United States and Canada that depends on donations from individuals to make our productions, including this one, possible. If you're able, please make a tax-deductible donation through our website, www.onelittlegoat.org. See you in 2 weeks, wishing you happy holidays and a healthy new year. Finnegans Wake is made possible by friends of One Little Goat Theatre Company and the Emigrant Support Programme of the Government of Ireland. Thank you for your support. And thank you to the artists for this episode: Richard Harte, sound by William Bembridge, podcast production by Sean Rasmussen, stage management by Sandi Becker, directed by yours truly, Adam Seelig. Music arranged and performed on the piano by me with Brandon Bach on drums, and recorded at Sound Department in Toronto. A big thanks to our wonderful live audience of Sandi Becker, David Mackett, Andrew Moodie, Cathy Murphy, Nomi Rotbard, Arlo Rotbard-Seelig, Adam Seelig, Aaron Tucker, and Catherine Veneri. Thank you to everyone at the Irish Consulate in Toronto. Thank you to production consultants Cathy Murphy and Andrew Moodie, and to music consultants Warwick Harte and Kevin Kennedy. Thank you for listening.